The can in your fridge right now is not what you think it is. Not the caffeine, not the sugar. I mean, the legal classification. Because the FDA does not regulate most energy drinks as beverages. They're classified as dietary supplements, and that one loophole means the manufacturer was never required to prove it was safe before putting it on the shelf. Never required to report side effects to the public, and critically, never required to tell you the actual total caffeine you're consuming. I spent 3 weeks going through FDA Adverse Event Reports, EFSA, safety assessments, and emergency room data. 8 brands came up over and over. I want to show you exactly what I found. Because the last thing on this list, the way one specific ingredient silently doubles caffeine's impact on your heart, is something I genuinely couldn't stop thinking about. We'll get there. But first, you need to understand the system that made all of this possible. Here's what dietary supplement actually means under FDA classification. It means the product goes to market first. The safety review comes later, if it comes at all. The company is not required to demonstrate safety before your first sip. They're required to report adverse events internally, but public disclosure? Inconsistent, legally optional in many contexts. And here's the part that makes the caffeine problem genuinely serious. Under this classification, manufacturers are not required to list total caffeine from all sources combined. So when a label says 160 milligrams of caffeine, that number reflects the added caffeine in hydrous. The caffeine naturally occurring in guarana extract, green tea extract, or yerba mate listed elsewhere on the label. Separate line item, not included in that total. A 2013 analysis published in Food and Chemical Toxicology found that actual caffeine content in several energy drinks was measurably higher than the declared amount once all botanical sources were accounted for. That study is over a decade old. The labeling rules have not changed. The FDA's own guidance identifies 400 milligrams as the daily upper limit for healthy adults. You're about to see how many of these products make it functionally impossible to know whether you're under that threshold or over it. Because the label was never designed to tell you. Bang Energy. The caffeine number, 300 milligrams, is the one people talk about. Here's the one they don't. Niacin. A single 16-ounce Bang contains 25 to 30 milligrams of niacin, right at the edge of what the NIH flags as the tolerable daily threshold before niacin flush hits. Flushing, tingling, skin redness, uncomfortable, not dangerous at this dose. But if you're taking a B complex in the morning and drinking a Bang in the afternoon, you can cross the NIH's 35 milligram upper limit without touching a single dangerous product. The label gives you no way to know that. Stacking is the problem, not the single can. Reign Total Body Fuel. 300 milligrams of caffeine and hydrous per can. One serving puts you at 75% of the FDA's daily adult ceiling before your first meal. The marketing targets gym culture, high performance, high rep, go harder. A 2020 analysis in JAMA Network Open examining energy drink-related emergency department visits found that products exceeding 200 milligrams of caffeine per serving were disproportionately represented in adverse cardiac event reports. Reign sits 50% above that threshold. One can. If you've seen people drinking 2 of these before a workout, that's 600 milligrams of caffeine in under an hour. The FDA's ceiling doubled. Monster Energy. In 2012, Monster was linked by FDA adverse event reports to 5 deaths. Monster's response wasn't a reformulation. It was a reclassification. The company switched its FDA status from dietary supplement to conventional beverage. That change meant it was no longer required to submit mandatory adverse event reports. Dr. John Higgins, professor of cardiovascular medicine at UT Health Houston, has published research specifically examining Monster's combination of caffeine anhydrous, taurine, and glucuronolactone, and its effects on cardiac function. To be precise, no peer-reviewed study has established direct causation between Monster and those deaths. What is documented is the pattern of reports, the research on the specific formulation, and the deliberate regulatory reclassification that followed. That sequence of decisions is worth sitting with. Celsius, marketed as a fitness drink, a health product. In 2023, Celsius settled a class action lawsuit in which plaintiffs alleged its health positioning was misleading. Not that the ingredients were dangerous, but that the framing was deceptive. The formulation includes acetylsulfame potassium, ACE-K, which carries FDA's GRAS designation. Here's what GRAS actually means. It means the ingredient passed a safety review. It does not mean long-term effects at habitual daily consumption have been comprehensively studied. A 2021 review in Frontiers in Nutrition found associations between regular ACE-K intake and alterations in gut microbiome composition. The researchers noted the evidence is preliminary. Celsius has not changed the formulation. The fitness label remains. G Fuel. The audience is teenagers. That's not an inference. It's the marketing strategy. Streamers, gamers, esports. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends zero energy drink consumption for anyone under 18. G Fuel is a powder, which means serving size is self-controlled. And a 2018 investigation by the Center for Science in the Public Interest flagged widespread self-reported double scooping among users. At standard serving, G Fuel contains approximately 20 milligrams of synthetic B6. The NIH's tolerable upper limit for B6 is 100 milligrams daily for adults, lower for adolescents. That sounds like headroom. Factor in a daily multivitamin and fortified foods, and that margin closes fast. At chronic high-dose levels, B6 has been associated with peripheral neuropathy in peer-reviewed literature. G Fuel's website does not mention any of this. Rockstar Energy. Original formula. 63 grams of added sugar per 16-ounce can. The American Heart Association's recommended daily added sugar limit for adult men is 36 grams. One Rockstar delivers 175% of that before you've opened a food container. Dr. Robert Lustig, professor of pediatric endocrinology at UCSF, has documented what he calls the caffeine-sugar feedback loop, a cycle where the glycemic spike from high-sugar caffeine products triggers an insulin-driven glucose crash at almost the same moment the caffeine is wearing off, which drives demand for the next can. This is not a conspiracy. It's documented metabolic pharmacokinetics. The formulation architecture matches the loop perfectly. 5-hour energy, the shot format. The label lists a proprietary energy blend: taurine, glucuronolactone, malic acid, and acetyl L-tyrosine, with a total blend weight, but no individual quantities. Proprietary blend is a legal designation. It means independent verification of exact doses is publicly impossible. A 2012 New York Times report found that 5-hour energy had been cited in over 90 FDA adverse event reports over 4 years, including 13 death reports. The company stated accurately that the reports don't establish causation. What they establish is a pattern that warranted investigation. And the proprietary blend classification ensures the investigation cannot start with the ingredient amounts, because those numbers are protected trade secrets. Now here's the thing I kept coming back to after 3 weeks of this research, and this is the part I teased at the beginning. Full throttle. On its own, 160 milligrams of caffeine, citric acid, sucralose, ACE-K. Nothing in that list looks alarming at a single serving. But a 2019 study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that citric acid significantly accelerates caffeine absorption rate. The same 160 milligram dose consumed with citric acid hits the cardiovascular system faster and more acutely than the same dose without it. The peak is sharper, the blood pressure spike is steeper, The heart rate elevation is more abrupt. This isn't obscure chemistry, it's documented pharmacokinetics, it's in the literature, and it applies to every energy drink co-formulating caffeine anhydrous with citric acid, which is most of them. The label says 160 milligrams. The label does not say, and this compound will accelerate how fast that reaches your heart. You were never told this, not because it's a secret, the study is publicly available, but because there is no regulatory requirement to disclose combination effects. The individual ingredients pass their individual safety reviews. What happens when they interact is, legally, your problem to figure out. That's not an accident in the regulatory framework. That's the framework working exactly as the industry designed it to work. Look, if you're a healthy adult and you have an energy drink occasionally, the evidence does not tell you to panic. What it tells you is that you've been making decisions without the information you were owed. Those are different problems with different solutions. If you're switching, coffee or matcha with a protein-based snack consistently outperforms canned energy drinks for sustained focus in the research literature. No proprietary blends, no ACE-K. Total caffeine is visible. You control the dose. If you're staying but reducing risk, choose products that list total caffeine from all botanical sources, not just added caffeine anhydrous. Mati and Guayaki Yerba Mai both do this. Stay under 200 milligrams per sitting. Never stack on days you're also taking B-complex supplements. Never mix with alcohol. The EFSA has documented that combination as a specific cardiac risk factor in healthy adults. Minimum harm reduction right now. Stop using any product with a proprietary blend. If the label won't tell you the individual doses, you cannot manage your total intake. That's not alarmism. That's the basic arithmetic of informed consumption. If any of this intersects with a health condition you're managing, talk to your doctor. This is a starting point. It is not a prescription. Here's what actually changed for me after this research. It wasn't the individual ingredients. It wasn't even the caffeine numbers. It was this: the combination effects, the stacking, the absorption acceleration, the botanical sources that don't appear in the caffeine total. These are documented in peer-reviewed literature, and there is zero regulatory requirement to put any of it on the label. Consumer transparency advocates have been pushing for mandatory total caffeine labeling since 2013. It hasn't passed. If you want to understand why, the American Beverage Association's lobbying expenditure records are publicly available on Open Secrets. The number is not small. You now know something most daily energy drink consumers don't. Not because this information was hidden. It's in journals, it's in FDA adverse event databases, it's in court settlement records. It was just never assembled somewhere you could find it before your next gas station stop. That changes today. The protein powder investigation, what the sports supplement industry knows about contamination, and what the FDA has documented about enforcement. That one is already up. And honestly, what we found there is somehow even less regulated than this. Remember, the front of the package is marketing. The truth is always behind the label.